Welcome, everybody. Thanks for the patience as we were getting set up. This is Dan Reeser, and I'm joined by Betty Chen, and it's great to be here. So, big week. It's been a big few weeks for the Polkadot ecosystem, and we've got a pretty exciting year ahead of us. Today, depending on where you are, we're going to be talking through quite a bit around the Acala launch and what's coming up on Tuesday, which is token transfers. And then what you can expect going forward with the Acala launch, as well as something, a bit of a surprise that Betty is going to be walking everyone through towards the end of the talk here. Betty, do you want to introduce yourself first? And then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. This is Betty, co-founder of Acala, and calling in from Auckland, New Zealand. It's exactly midday now here.
Awesome. And Dan Reeser, great to see everybody here. I lead our growth team, focusing on marketing and business development, and gonna be walking everyone through some slides here. So let me share my screen and go ahead and go through some of these slides. All right. So I can't see my comments. Betty, can you see the slides?
Yep, I can
Cool.
see the slides.
All right, so it was going to be the three of us. Brian is our CTO and one of our co-founders, and Brian is focusing on a lot of the development work right now. So tonight, it's just going to be Betty and I. Like I said, we're going to be going through a launch update, a significant event for the community, as I know a lot of people over the past year or so have been involved in several different of several different community events. So we had a couple Build Acala events last year. We of course had the crowd loan for Karura as well as Acala. So a lot of people have been waiting for this moment, and really excited to start getting things rolling and rolling out our products as we get into the year. Like I said, we're going to go through the launch roadmap, talk through what's next in the launch. And then Betty's going to go through some details around a new DAO that's going to be community-led, which will allow people to stake ACA, which I know people are pretty pumped about. But just to get started, I wanted to lay out a few statistics that we think are pretty important going into our launch and going through this launch process over the coming weeks. We're launching an entire layer 1 blockchain. So this is one of the biggest kind of trends in the industry we're seeing now with the proliferation of a lot of these different ecosystems. And one thing to just realize is that a lot of these parachains are launching entire layer 1 blockchain ecosystems. So the reason why it's taking weeks for us to roll out this blockchain is because there's a lot of different components that go into that. As I mentioned last year, we had the crowd loan towards the end of the year, which included the kind of contribution of a significant amount of DOT in support of Acala's crowd loan that got kind of locked away and put in place for kind of a bid for our slot lease. In return, a lot of people decided to contribute using the liquid crowd loan DOT product. So because of the LC DOT, a lot of people have liquidity in the DOT that they contributed to the crowd loan. And because of that, we've got around $600 million in TVL as we speak at launch. So that's pretty exciting to us, and really I'm expecting this to grow over the coming years. Similarly, we had around 100,000 people contribute on-chain and another 100,000 people contribute through exchanges to the crowd loan last year. So again, at launch, we've got well over 200,000 people that are network owners or token holders in ACA, the kind of utility token or governance token of the Acala network. Another thing that Betty will get into is a little bit more into the future and where we're thinking in terms of positioning ourselves in the market and where we think Acala will play in the global financial landscape over the coming years. As many of you know, we've been working closely with our friends in New York at Current.com. Current is a fintech company who currently offers savings accounts to around 3 million customers in the United States. A lot of these people are kind of newer to the financial system, using Current for savings accounts. Acala and Current have kind of paired up to build a DeFi backend to essentially bring the yields that a lot of us in the crypto world are enjoying to people in the traditional finance world who may not know how to use things like MetaMask or public and private keys. So this is the first of many of our integrations with the fintech world. And we're really excited to have around 3 million customers at current, kind of waiting to begin enjoying these yields from the crypto world as soon as we launch the product with current. There will be a lot more coming on current this year, and we definitely plan on teaming up with current for various presentations and conferences over the coming year. So keep a lookout for that. This integration with current is really starting to shepherd in this new category of HiFi or hybrid finance, where we're blending together the worlds of fintechs and neobanks and even traditional banks with the Web3 or crypto world. Betty, do you want to go into a little bit more around HiFi and what we're doing in that space?
Yeah, so I think it's a good time to actually share our HiFi vision, probably again to some of you. To some of you, you probably know us from a distance. So let me explain, right? So 2.5 years ago, the team of Acala kind of chose the Substrate and Polkadot stack. And one of the reasons we've looked around for Cosmos, for ETH2 and various different places to build. And we had the vision of things is going to go domain specific, is going to be application specific blockchain. That will be the next wave. And of course, this vision has since, after 2 years of building, and here we are, we launched the first version of our blockchain. And then that, I guess, vision, if you say back then, we had a lot of assumptions where things are going, because the first ways will be a lot of generalized chain. You can see copies of Ethereum going lots of different places, but at some point, right, after those bubbles, at some point, you got to get down to business and build something that everybody can use. And we believe that solution is full stack, vertical integration. You see the same thing happen for Apple devices. They own the hardware all the way to App Store, and then they give you the best experience. And then the same thing happened for Tesla cars, right? Not only they own the hardware, the software, but also the computer chips, and customize that so that they can deliver you all the experience that you have, including self-driving. And then for us, we're taking that same approach as full stack. So we can customize the entire blockchain so that we can actually serve all of those customers that you may not see today. Because all the farmers, DeFi farmers today, they are our immediate users or early adopters, super early adopters, if you like. But ultimately, we're going to serve folks who are next to me, having a meeting next door. They know nothing about crypto, or just everyday people to use it. And then you need a lot of layers, because I'll probably go through a few of them. So, for example, DeFi compliance gonna come inevitably. And then when you get to that point, if you need to, by requirement, certain part of the addresses has to be customized, and then be able to serve the compliance reasons. If you're building inside a fixed box, which is like EVM or smart contract, you will have no ability to do any of those. But we are able to do it at a chain level to do those customization. And same for settlements, right? To get us started, some of the car companies, they require settlement to be in dollars rather than in some random native coins, and we are able to do it. And that's mostly because we are taking this full stack approach, and that's why they like us to be their partners rather than just picking any other chain. And then the second most important thing everyone have to be aware is this upgradability. Because of this way that we can upgrade without forks at the lower level, it's a future proof, right? Because today we have current, and then we also have a few others lined up, right? They all have different requirements in a real world. And then if our solution is fixed, then we cannot serve them, right? This is mostly the layer ones. They are kind of like fixed in their solution. So for us, we have this ability to continue to innovate customize our solutions and serve more and more people, hopefully beyond just the crypto users. So on the right-hand side, maybe we can go to the next slide, Dan. Yeah, so on the right-hand side, you can see the stack that we're building. And then you guys know how early you are by looking at the arrows of the entire stack. So the angle is going from the bottom to the top. And then everybody here is basically at the ground floor. As of today, or if more officially, next Tuesday, the 25th, once the token transfer is enabled, that's the first stage launch for the Acala chain. And that's only the foundation of the network. And then there are many layers on top of it from the base chain, and then you're going to get the primitives that are being built. Think of those as in a sovereign blockchain or in a sovereign nation. When you're rebuilding the financial infrastructure, you need a reserve bank, you need commercial banks, you need liquidity exchanges, all that sort of stuff. That is the Acala's premises as providing those primitives before other folks come and build. And then the next layer on top of that is the open protocol layer. This is where EVM compatibility and also future-proof for any other smart contract engines that are available, then we're able to support. And then there will be many innovations happen on the open protocol layer. And then on top is potentially there will also be a compliance layer, just looking at where things are going. This may be necessary before many of those fintech companies will be able to connect and integrate with us. And then on top of that, not only fintech, right? There's also retail payment or retail fi. There's also TradeFi that we are working with that are in the pipeline. Of course, those are in the longer term that's going to happen, but in a very short term, we are innovating at a very, very ground level. And again, I see a lot of chats, folks from all sorts of different places, Singapore, France, and everywhere. So, and I can tell from your message that you are ACA holders. And I think by holding an ACA, it's not like things going to happen, just drop from the thin air, right? This is probably a lot of people just imagine if you're holding a token today, stuff's just going to happen when you wake up. If you look at the dot on the left-hand side, this is the current state of the blockchain, right? If you're not innovating, if you're just copy and pasting, the circle doesn't get much larger, right? However many of the users, today is however many, because it's repeating the business model, you're repeating the innovation, you're repeating the same tech stack. You're basically shifting the farmers from one place to another. You're shifting the yield from one place to another. You're going around the same circle with the same amount of people. But I think many people in the space share the same vision as us, is we need to grow the pie bigger, right? This is the pie on the right-hand side. In order to do that, well, you can imagine if you're doing exactly the same thing as yesterday, would your future be slightly better? If I continue my behavior from yesterday, no exercise, no meditation, no learning, no growth, would my future or tomorrow be slightly better than today? Really doubt it, right? So what applies to individuals also applies to innovation and technology, is we need to innovate and do something different. And this is where Acala comes in to provide, and also Polkadot, right? Providing a different tech stack to scale, and also providing a different infrastructure for the majority of the financial world and majority of the people that have a pathway to move and merge into what crypto brings people, sovereignty, freedom, and access. So growing this pie is every ACA holder's responsibility. You're not just holding a free ticket, you're holding a responsibility to help us to get there as well. And this comes from building, right? So as a core team, so we basically went all in to build a tech. But I think everybody is a builder, not just building technology, but also building content, building community, and then building relationship and bringing more people's awareness. And you are responsible. So yeah, so let's do this together. Next.
Yep.
Yeah, and then next, coming down to something more practical, right? Dan mentioned that through the two public sale event, Build Acala 1 and Build Acala 2, we've raised more than $2 million plus dot. It's very important that you understand, in a normal public sale, who gets the proceeds? Basically, the foundation or the project team gets the proceeds, right? What do they normally use them for? They usually convert them into dollars, and then they can spend it to grow the network or build stuff or just like some other expenses. You never know, right? What we have done at Acala is we so believe in the vision that we had, and we so believe in what I just talked about, where we are heading. We're donating the entire proceed from the two public sale event into the on-chain treasury. And then by donating that entire 2 million plus dot in the treasury, we forego the ownership of the dot onto the on-chain treasury, right? And what does that mean for the ACA holders, right? For the ACA holders, then you now have stewardship over this treasury, as well as whatever this treasury generates. I like the word treasury much better than ownership, because I think right now in the world that we live in, because of this ownership model, you have very small percentage of the people owning almost the entire wealth of the entire population. That's a wrong incentive alignment. I think stewardship is a much better way to manage resources. So so stewardship means every ownership, you actually take responsibility. You're not only just by acquiring as much as you can without actually giving out to help steward the resources that you get allocated, right? So this is the vision for Acala. Is we don't know the perfect answer of what's the perfect way. Anyone tells you they know the perfect answer probably is lying. We only know what's better, right? So we've seen in the world this unfairness, unequalness happening, and also this way of dealing it can be improved. And then to our best knowledge, we created this model, right? And then it's also very important that whatever ACA token you got today, you already secure your share of this future, because ACA token, unlike many other tokens, it's not delusional, right? It's not diluted over time. It's a fixed supply. So whatever percentage you've got a share of not just this treasury, but the network, as well as where the network is going, right? And of course, it also comes into how along with the stewardship that you help guide where things are going. How do you actually get return and enjoy the growth and yield coming from the treasury, for example? And this is where probably we'll spend a little bit of time at the end to talk about ACA staking is coming. And it's actually done in a way that's out of my surprise. It's actually a community project initiative. So we can spend a little bit of time and talk about that and see what people think. Yeah.
Great. For people who were on our previous call in December, we did go through this slide, but I wanted to resurface this and just reiterate a couple points here, because one of the things that happens when you're building in an ecosystem like Polkadot, which is the only of its kind, and ETH2 will be similar if that ever gets launched. But right now on Polkadot, all these teams are building these parachains, and we won this parachain auction in order to essentially connect to Polkadot and inherit Polkadot's security and the interoperability between us and other blockchains on this network. But one thing that also comes with that is the dependency on Polkadot itself, the development team, to finish certain technologies that we need in order to operate our network. So one thing to keep in mind is there are a lot of dependencies on the Polkadot team. So with certain products that we're looking to launch, most notably LDOT is reliant on a technology called cross-chain messaging, or XCM. So that's one dependency just to be aware of. And we're going to be moving through these product rollouts as quickly as we can, knowing that there are these dependencies. There's a couple other things that we do have dependencies on, and luckily the engineering team is very strong, and we're able to come up with some alternative solutions to that. But just wanted to highlight that. The other thing is Polkadot as well as Acala are very careful and conservative with how we roll out products, with how we test. So what you saw, if you've been following everything on Kusama, things actually rolled out surprisingly quickly. I wouldn't expect it to move quite as fast on Polkadot, whether it's Acala or any other parachain team. There's just a lot more value at stake on the Polkadot network. So people are kind of taking a little bit more of a cautious approach and going for the kind of enterprise grade security approach to security and testing. Another thing is that Polkadot governance actually moves about 4 times slower than Kusama governance, which means for making proposals, for getting changes through in the code, it takes a little bit longer. So I'm just kind of setting expectations with that. And then as we go through our launch, if you are in the Polkadot ecosystem for maybe more than 6 months, you've probably noticed that Parity, Web3 Foundation, Polkadot, Acala, we never give timelines. We never give dates because that's very dangerous to do in software development. If there's blockchain teams that give dates, it's most likely just not even real tech because it's really hard to predict when these timelines will actually end because so many things can come up that are unpredictable. So we're always going to do our best to tell you when things are coming soon. We'll start talking about things more when we think that they're coming out soon. But please just be aware that we'll most likely not give exact dates or pre-announcements of anything that we're launching. So today, I know the main topic was the token transfer. So I wanted to just go through the Acala launch roadmap here. I know Robin or Jillian in the chat can throw the link in for this page. But let's just quickly check where we are in this process. So at the top, we've kind of broken it down by phases of governance. Phase 1 is completed, 1, 2, and 3. And then we're actually in phase 2 now. So token transfers are right here, so January 25th. We've finished most of the things in phase 2 here, including support for LCdot, distribution of tokens, including ACA and LCdot. And these other pieces here are in process or are going to be completed soon. Token transfers, essentially what that means is that your tokens are now going to be no longer locked as of Tuesday. So you could send your ACA to your mom or your sister. You could receive ACA from a friend and do whatever you would like with those tokens, including things like voting in governance, participating in Acala's network. So this is really one of the things that we need to do to kickstart the network and really get things moving. As we move along too, different products will begin to roll out. So click into here. So stablecoin, AUSD, our DEX that's built into the chain, and then the liquid dot staking will all be coming soon. And then of course the EVM Plus, which I'm going to get into in a little bit with Betty. Betty, is there anything else you want to add here, or do you want to go back to the slide?
No, let's carry on.
Cool. So I'll let you go through this. I'll just click through one by one.
Yeah, so let's zoom in a little bit, what you expect in the immediate term. So for folks who supported us through the crowd loan, especially through the liquid staking approach, thank you. And then I think all of those tokens have been distributed. And then you can either check on Subscan or on the distribution side. That requires no claim or anything else. Yeah. And there's 24 million of those. And the second thing, very importantly, everybody needs to understand is a lot of the stuff we do is trying to make DOT really great, right? I hope a lot of you here, not only you know Acala, but you also know DOT and Polkadot and why it's important that it's the future of the Web3 of internet, right? And then so it's important that we bring the DOT assets from Polkadot relay chain onto the Acala chain. And as we were told, the XCM, the cross-chain stuff, is going to be delayed. But as Dan mentioned, that we work out a way with the Parity team that we can actually bring the dot onto Acala with a one-way bridge. And there's also ways for us to also withdraw those onto different places, which I will share a little bit more. So the first thing that will happen is we will try to open the dot bridge as quickly as possible, maybe in the next week or two, so that you can start bringing your dot onto Acala and then start doing the trading and then also borrowing, etc. And then the next thing to it is we're going to open a few pools. Maybe to start with is LCdot and a dot pool. So for those of you who hold dot, right, you might want to get ready to unstake because this is an opportunity potentially picking up some discounted dot, right? So for a lot of the LC dot holders, some of them might want liquidity, and they might want to just sell it before waiting for 2 years to claim their dot back from the Acala crowd loan. So this might be a good time to be picking up those dots or just become a liquidity provider. And the LP pools might be quite favorable because these two assets are basically stable assets, right? You're not going to have much impermanent loss because one dot is one dot. One LC dot at the end of the day is also one dot. So this is going to be quite an interesting trade, unique on Acala, right? Yeah, so let's keep moving. And then once we've got both assets on chain, we can open up Acala dollar lending. This is a very important instrument because with one dot locked in the crowd loan without the derivative, it's one dot. But if once we created the LC dot, one dot becomes two dot worth of value to boost up the economy. And then if you use that two dot, the LC dot, and you can borrow Acala dollar, that's another layer of lending, right? And with that, you basically gradually creating a larger and larger economy. And that's how economy can be bootstrapped and grown. And of course, those dollars or those coins needs to be used in productive ways, like in the protocol, doing various things. And of course, if you see a lot of bubble bursting, it's because people spend all of those on various different useless stuff. So what we're trying to do here is you can think about now you've got liquidity once we start, and we start to have a full reserve bank. This is what Acala dollar is, where you can deposit your assets and then you can leverage out of it. And then after that is hopefully by then the XCM stuff will be ready by Polkadot, and then we'll open up this non-custodial liquid staking. It's also very important for everyone to know liquid staking is not just another place to stake. Right now, all the dot are staked on the Relay chain and it's sitting there doing nothing. And the economy is not growing because you are staking, right? That's why there's no correlation of how much dot being staked or locked in crowd loan versus what's happening, out there. So it's very important that we use a derivative product to stake. Of course, that's non-custodial, that's trustless, that also give you same or even better returns for staking. But at the same time, very important, those one dot becomes two dot, and then it can circulate in the market and then do a lot more, not just for the owner, and that's of course, but also for the whole ecosystem, the economy grow. Imagine L dot can also be used in another protocol, maybe for staking and earning some other yields in the ecosystem, right? So that's that. And then once that happened, we will also have a multi-chain bridge. Hopefully there's an announcement on that. I won't reveal which one, but this basically allows Acala connect into multiple different ecosystems beyond just Ethereum, but also a few others as well. So this opens us up from a local economy into a more global economy. So assets coming in to the Acala chain for lending and borrowing and trading, but also the Acala dollar can also go on to different places to trade. And along this way, then you will probably see a number of ecosystem protocols. There's a lot of them, but of course, I'm particularly excited about a few of them. And one of them is the Acala staking through this ecosystem project called AquaDAO, which we'll review a little bit more detail slightly later. And then there's also a curve-like synthetic asset staking protocol, So to give you, rewards for trading and becoming a liquidity provider for stable assets, which will be very interesting for LCdot, LDOT, DOT, and also various different type of stable coins that's going to come onto the Acala ecosystem. And also a lending protocol that's being built as well. That's native to the DOT and Acala ecosystem. It's also very exciting. And these are, natively built, but there's a whole bunch of, migrated protocols as well along the way. So they will come on board once the full EVM Plus is being launched. And then the top right corner, you can see we've now got a family of assets, right? You've got LCdot, you've got LDOT, you've got Acala dollar, and et cetera, et cetera. And then we'll be able to, list them beyond just the DEX within Acala. That could be other DEXs on other ecosystems, but also non-decentralized exchanges as well. And hope you are going to be excited about those that you can trade all different sort of Acala family assets onto different avenues. Yeah.
Cool. I just want to add one point on LCdot, just going back to the very beginning. If you're not aware of the kind of the details of how LCdot works and you hold LCdot, please just be careful with the decisions that you make and make sure you're doing your research on how everything works. LCdot is your only receipt for redeeming the dot that you contributed to the crowd on. So just to reiterate, if you get rid of your LCdot or if you sell it, you will need to rebuy LCdot in order to redeem that for your dot in 2 years. So just be careful, make sure you do your research. And we're not trying to give any financial advice at all, but just make sure people know that this is a complex product. It's a derivative of a crowd loan dot, new for all of us. This is a new thing for everyone. So just be aware of that as you're making those decisions. Betty, why don't you go through these two, and then I'll pick up the next one.
Yeah, so I think everyone is maybe a lot of people are interested to know why didn't we launch EVM like yesterday? So there's a reason. There's a plus at the end, right? So let me explain. So for most of the EVM chains out there already, they're basically old wine in a new bottle, right? So it's exactly the same tech stack, the EVM sandbox. And it's not trying to grow the pie. It's just like repeat the success of others, and then also continue to kind of like having this hype bubble everywhere. I think it's good because crypto space is very experimental, and it's also very fun to go to different places to farm, to be honest. However, with what I laid out is the ultimate goal is to actually grow the pie. Right? If you're keeping the old wine in a new bottle, you're not growing the wine. You're not making new wines. So what we are trying to do is make new wines while it fits into the same bottle, right? And if you're using exactly the same tech, you're also missing out what the new tech actually brings you, and you're kind of missing out the growing pie part of the story. So, for example, within the Polkadot ecosystem, if you're using the standard or the old EVM technology, then the cross Polkadot parachain liquidity and also all the Polkadot substrate features would not be accessible by normal MetaMask users. So then you kind of lose the point of using Polkadot at all, right? You're probably better off using any other sort of EVM technology out there. And then the second thing is, if you continue to live in the EVM sandbox without the ability to use the new features, then you're missing out a lot. So for example, substrate node is much more lightweight and inexpensive to run. But if you just use the old EVM tech, it becomes expensive. You can't actually scale. And then also substrate have ability to forkless upgrade, and there's a lot more functionality that you can add on to it, like what we did at Acala. If you're living in an old tech, basically all of those innovation you've done, no one can access, right? If there's new builders, new protocol providers comes along, they won't be able to use it. And that's also why I think some of the fintech folks and also the more, I guess, institution folks comes along, they have certain requirement. They go everywhere. It's exactly the same tech. No one can innovate out of the box. And then those who can will probably will have more opportunity to actually integrate and expand their user base. Beyond crypto, I guess. So maybe going just a little bit specific. Some of the stuff that we already have, as a feature list, right? So you can pay gas fees in any token on our EVM, stable coins, well, whatever you like within using MetaMask. And then you can also support customizable fee schedule. So you can have 0 fee transactions. So you might deploy a contract and you just like, serve your customers, and then the customers don't need to pay fees. And then you could either pay fees on behalf or have a subscription model to it. And this is not possible, basically, on a normal EVM chain and doing subscription and things like that. And of course, we're able to support both ERC20 and also like basically any Ethereum compatible token standard, as well as the substrate native token seamlessly. There's no new token standard or whatever. Everything is ERC20. You don't need to move coins in and out. It's basically one platform, seamlessly transferable. And then the fourth thing is more extensible list of DeFi features that we provided for folks who come and build. So we have the ability for people to build on-chain keepers. This is like one of the elephants that people don't want to mention, but it's like there on Ethereum, is there's a lot of like servers being run privately or by a group, and then kind of managing billion-dollar transactions off-chain, right? So you can do all of this on-chain on Acala. And this is, I guess one of the things that people overlook, but if you want to get to the certain level, those are the things you must have as the baseline for you to integrate with a much bigger audience. And other things, I won't go into too much detail, like Oracle feeds are prioritized on the EVM as well. So all protocol developers can enjoy that. And the most important thing is the upgrade ability. So with the ability to upgrade, any new changes, like if there's new feature for, say, compliance, and those are made available immediately onto the EVM for the EVM developers, right? So imagine you can actually change the engine without affecting its security, without affecting all of its economics, also not affecting UX because there's no forks, right? And then the developers continue to enjoy those benefits, and so as the flow-on effect for the users at the end. And also, needless to say, making the EVM Plus compatible with all the MetaMask and also all the Ethereum tooling, and support both ecosystems. So you basically, if you're an existing Polkadot user, you could use that for contracts deploy on EVM, and vice versa, right? So basically, people can go whichever they choose to do will be fine. So yeah.
So this slide is basically just a visual representation of what Betty just walked through. I'll just highlight a couple things. So this is on the left, a standard layer 1 blockchain with an EVM environment built on top. This red outline is here to show you that this is essentially, you're kind of locked in the confines of this old EVM environment. The reason why we've been spending months to build our EVM Plus is because we've actually built a layer here between the EVM and between Substrate. It's essentially an adapter. If you're technical, we're using precompiled smart contracts to allow the EVM to interact with Substrate. So the reason why we're calling this the EVM Plus is because we're combining the Ethereum virtual machine with Substrate. So Gavin Wood's first invention at Ethereum with the new framework that he built to build much more customizable blockchains on Polkadot, which is Substrate. And then this is a look into our blockchain. So as you can see over here on the left, typically like stablecoins, decentralized exchanges, staking applications are built on top of the EVM. What we've actually done is we've built these products into our blockchain itself. So this is a layer 1 chain, just like over here. But in the chain, you have a stablecoin, you have a DEX, you have a staking product, and then some of these things that Betty was just talking about. These features to allow gas fee customization and things like that. It's important to know that these are all built into the chain because this allows anything building on top of the blockchain to be able to interact with everything built at the chain level below. So I added this here just to highlight too. One of the cool things is that when teams are coming and building on the EVM, we're already getting feedback from people that are building applications on the EVM Plus and giving us almost like a wish list. Like I wish I wish the blockchain could do this. I wish my application could do this. And because of the flexibility and because of the ability to upgrade the blockchain without forking it, we can continue adding new functionality into the chain and just simply upgrading it. So anyone building on the Acala EVM Plus knows that they're going to be building on a blockchain that will not get old because it'll constantly be improving over time. With that being said, Betty, we've got about 14 minutes, and we apologize if we don't have a whole lot of time for questions. We have an interview. We're hiring quite a few people right now, so we've got to go in about 14 minutes. But Betty, take us through Aqua, and we'll see if we can get to some questions at the end.
Yeah, sure. So maybe we'll go into a little bit more into Acala staking and then growing the Acala treasury. So a sneak peek into this Aqua DAO community project, which seems very exciting. So let's go to the next slide, go right into it. So folks here, if you don't already notice, ACA has a fixed supply, right? Most other coins out there, they're inflationary. The difference between the two, maybe a real world example. I just checked my bank account yesterday. They're giving me like a 2% roughly interest rate on my savings. And I should feel happy about it, right? But then at the back of it, there's probably 20% inflation over the last year due to COVID or anything else. Of course, I only focus on the 2% I earned, but I forgot about the minus 18% that I lost due to inflation. This is an inflationary model, right? So the design for Acala or ACA is, I understand, what happens in the real world very well. By inflation, basically, whose money got taken away? It's basically those everyday people. You holding to that coin, right? Basically, is the note, the dollar in your pocket, and then without taking away that one piece of note, they're taking it away, taking away its value by inflation. Right. So when we design Acala, we know this really well. We also know how the blockchain game play very well. So we thought a fixed supply is probably a way more responsible and a better way out for everybody to kind of like have a store of value over time. But also at the same time, for new projects to come along, you need to bootstrap, you need to sustain your technology, especially in a Polkadot environment. You need crowd loan to sustain your network security every 2 years. So how do you solve that conflict between you have a fixed supply, but you also need some incentive to help you to grow the ecosystem? So that was the white paper. If someone can drop that white paper, is Acala Treasury. It was written, I'll look up the day again, it was like written 2 years ago. We're obviously 2 years too early when we wrote that paper. It's basically how you can actually kind of like collectively build up this treasury. So once you build up this treasury, your network becomes sovereign. You can even think about it's like a sovereign nation, right? And you have this wealth fund. And then over time, this wealth fund can kind of like distribute those shares and distribute the yield and also growth back into whoever holds the passport of that nation, which is the ACA token, right? And this is how we were thinking when we are designing this whole system. And then with holding the ACA, you kind of preserve your share of the network. And then somehow the ACA treasury, as well as growing of the network, more activities, and also all of those stuff that we talked just now is going to help us to build up this nation together, right? And of course, if you can go to the next slide, then Aqua DAO, why I think it's a very interesting idea is basically it heavily kind of references the white paper that we wrote, which was like a concept design that we wrote 2 years ago, basically putting those ideas into protocol control policies, basically building the thing on chain as autonomous sort of a way to manage the treasury and the reserve, and it has ability to grow the Acala treasury, right? We didn't start from zero, which is pretty awesome. We started with 2 million DOT, but it has the ability to grow the Acala treasury over time and also its own reserve. And then also it provides a way for ACA holders to access those growth and also the future yield through staking. So this is a very interesting part So I'm speaking this as ACA token holders, right? So that's why I think it's a very cool way that I can see, how the Acala treasury is going to be continue to build up, and ACA holders actually gets continue kind of like share over time. And then it also in its design has this thing to empower more governance engagement. So this is through delegated voting and also vested voting in their plan. So I think that's also going to be interesting, because in the reserve, you're not only having stakers staking ACA, you also have DOT and various different form of DOT like LDOT in the reserve, and potentially this can be a pooled tokens to participate in Acala voting as well as Polkadot voting, and maybe beyond that, depends on I guess where people want the reserve to go. And then essentially at the end of the day, once this is all built up, like the treasury and the reserve is built up, those you already have the tokens that's got value, that's got yield and utility. Basically, it's like DOT, right? DOT give us, for the treasury, one of the most important thing is we have enough DOT so that for the next crowd loan, right? We don't need to print more ACA. We have enough DOT in the treasury reserve to actually pay for another parachain slot, easy, right? So, and then DOT itself provides yield, right? Through liquid staking, we can do that very easily on Acala platform. And ultimately, once you've gone through the initial stage, potentially you could also deploy excessive reserve to other places to help the ecosystem grow, but in a way, it ties back the yield to the ACA holders. For example, it could potentially fund parachain crowd loans and also grow your asset portfolio and doing all sorts of things that also power ACA token holders. Yeah, so I won't go into too much detail because I think folks only release a little bit of details online. So we'll see what happens next. And then hopefully this gets built very quickly so we all get to enjoy ACA staking. So yeah. And then one thing to point out is the model is done is ACA stakers will get shares, right, from this whole Acala DAO reserve, but also you can subscribe into the Acala DAO using your existing assets. So LCdot holders don't just think about trade away your LCdots. You could also use LCdot to subscribe into this Acala DAO and do a whole bunch of things with it. So yeah, so a lot of things to come. So hold on to it. And let's await ACA staking. Yeah, so you can go on to the website acaladao.app and also the Twitter to follow them. I don't think there's anything happening, so it's like very boring right now. Everybody is probably building. So yeah.
Cool. So we've got.
Yeah, so for one thing I want to answer, I've looking at all the chats and stuff, is a relationship between Acala and Karura. So for those who don't know, in the Polkadot ecosystem, there's Polkadot and there's also Kusama as the canary network. So for Acala, it's the same. So we also have a canary network called Karura launched on Kusama, and then Acala launched on Polkadot. You got to think about the two this way, right? They are not separate. So they're almost like they cannot live without each other, basically. So for all the tech, it's proven on Karura. Without Karura, Acala is not going to do all the stuff that I mentioned. All the tech, all the fancy stuff that we do cross-chain and then doing all of those application integration into fintech, it's all proven on Karura. So Karura is the technical intrinsic value for Acala, right? And however, when you see the DAO and then the treasury, Acala's got 2 million. Acala is the economic intrinsic value supporting Karura because of the technical importance, basically a strategic importance of Karura. Acala is gonna continue bring Karura up. So for example, practically, some of the treasury part of it will be used to put into Karura treasury to support the economic growth there. And the two you can think about is one is the smaller boat, one is the much bigger boat, and they're all on the ocean, right? So the goal is we grow the ocean. So if the ocean level goes up, the two boat goes up, but one is always the bigger boat, one is the smaller boat. So the bigger boat is Acala, smaller boat is Karura, and one is proving supporting the other with technical capability. That's Karura, and another is like Karura supporting Karura economically. So if the two goes into positive cycle, then you can see we're doing really well, and you can't lift one without the other. Otherwise, you are basically testing everything on production, right? So yeah.
Betty, the most asked question is related to the end of the presentation. So is there a minimum for ACA staking? Do you know?
Sorry?
A minimum for ACA staking required?
I don't know. It didn't get reviewed on the material. So there's a forum post, like you guys can take a look and have a look at the. Also, there's like I think there's like a documentation and going through all the details. I don't think it's full though. I think folks just release a little bit, and then maybe there are more details coming soon. So
I'll put the post here if anyone's interested. Okay, a few more minutes. So exchanges we're not going to talk about. When is the coin list launching? The coin's launching on Tuesday. It's based on block time. So the estimate is 5 a.m. UTC on Tuesday, January 25th. That could slightly shift based on block times, but I guess it's safe to say by Wednesday, things will be transferable. Tokens will be transferable. We actually answered a lot of these already. Okay, I know we've got just a couple more minutes. Yeah, people are asking about exchanges. We don't talk about exchanges. Exchanges will list ACA if they want to. So I guess just
and they can do whatever they want after token transfer is enabled. So
yeah. Okay. What I'll do is go through the questions. If there are questions that we hadn't answered that are good questions, we'll go ahead and try to either answer them via text or maybe video and post that to all of you. Another thing, we heard that a lot of people in the chat like Betty's hoodie. So we're going to go through and pick our 10 favorite questions that people asked throughout the Crowdcast today and send you guys hoodies to your front door. So be on the lookout for that. We'll send you an email if you were selected for the hoodie. So 10 of you will be lucky to get one of those nice hoodies. 1 minute to go. Like I said, Acala's hiring. If you're excited about what we're building, if you're excited about the future of hybrid finance, definitely look at our job board. We're hiring pretty much across the board, including an interview now, like I said, in a minute. We've had so much success last year in terms of just the community growth and getting to know a lot of you guys in the community. So thanks everybody for supporting both of our networks, Karura and Acala, and we can't wait to continue growing these two networks this year and beyond this year. As we go through this launch, just like with Karura, we'll be keeping everyone updated on community calls on Discord. We'll be coming back to Crowdcast every once in a while for presentations and just keeping everyone updated on every step throughout the process here. Besides that, everybody have a good day, good night, wherever you are. Definitely join us in the Discord. That's our kind of main communication channel for the community. So join us there if you have questions. And thanks everybody for taking the time to listen to the presentation today. And thanks for the support.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.